Excellent!
So we are kicking it old school with a video card review today. So here is the brand new MSI GeForce GTX 960 Gaming 4GB edition, featuring NVIDIA's GM206 Maxwell-based GPU and currently retailing for about $240. I was a bit critical of the GTX 960 when it launched with only a 2GB frame buffer, although I did appreciate things like the power efficiency, and I had no problem recommending it for PC gaming at 1080p. So will the 4 gigs on this factory overclock card from MSI make a difference, especially while playing GTA 5 for PC, which is now available and is also a huge VRAM hog? Well, to answer that question, I'm going to split this video in half. No, I'm not making it a two-parter, but the first half is going to focus on the card itself and the specs and overview and whatnot, and the second half will be some live benchmarking with GTA 5, so feel free to skip ahead if that's exactly what you're here for. Let's start with a closer look at MSI's GeForce GTX 960 Gaming 4G though. My immediate thought was that this does not look like a sub $250 card. You'll often see pared down variations of the custom cooling solutions on these less expensive cards, but this one could easily pass for a GTX 970 or 980 for that matter. The twin Frozer 5 cooler is almost the same with 3 nickel-plated heat pipes, one 8mm and two 6mm, as well as dual 100mm fans. These are Torx fans with 14 blades of varying shape and size. They're both very effective and very quiet, and I'm going to peel this piece of plastic off really quick. Just like that. Now they don't spin up, that's what that piece of plastic was on here for, unless 3D rendering kicks in and it gets up to a certain temperature. That's a trick that's very common on these 900 series cards, but still very nice to have. The red and black aesthetic also works great overall. There's a white LED backlit MSI Dragon logo, which looks pretty sweet, and what the frickin' hell, a backplate. Like, oh my gosh, nice black finish backplate with MSI's Dragon logo on it. Very, very clean. Something that you don't even get with MSI's standard Gaming Edition 970 and 980. So sweet, cool. Very good job, MSI, for including a backplate on this one. The PCB is also a nice black finish, and you even get these black metal pieces that kind of fit over the MOSFETs and the VRAM modules. That helps cool them down, and it also gives the PCB a little bit of extra support and rigidity for the card overall. The only way I was able to actually tell at a glance that this is a GTX 960, apart from the slightly redesigned cooler, is at the end towards the PEG connector. The PCB in here is pretty much empty, which isn't a bad thing, but it does mean that this is a full-sized 2-slot card. It measures 267mm long, or about 10.5 inches, which isn't exactly short. It should be fine in most cases, and the extra size should improve the cooling performance as well. Moving on to connectors, you will need an 8-pin PEG PCI Express graphics power connector versus a 6-pin that you would need on the reference board. MSI is also recommending a 400-watt power supply for the graphics card and your entire system. Kudos to MSI, by the way, for flipping that PEG connector so that the catch is on the top too, by the way. Great job. There's a PCI Express Gen 3 connector along the bottom of the card, as well as a single SLI finger along the top of the card, since this card does support two-way SLI. Video outs are all the same as the OG GTX 960, 970, or 980 in that you get a dual-link DVI, an HDMI 2.0, as well as 3 DisplayPort 1.2 full-size connectors. And again, you can power 4 displays from this single card. NVIDIA feature support is also pretty much the same as the 970 and the 980, so you can try out their new dynamic super resolution, as well as G-Sync, Shield support, GPU boost, PhysX, CUDA, etc, etc. As for core specs, the GM206 GPU from NVIDIA at the heart of this graphics card sports 1024 CUDA cores, and MSI factory overclocks it to run at 1241 MHz base clock, 1304 MHz boost clock. That's compared to the reference 960's boost, which is 1178. Rounding out the specs, you get 32 RLP units, and of course the 4GB of GDDR5 memory running at 7010 MHz on a 128-bit bus. Now, before we move on to the second half of this video with some GTA 5 benchmarking and gameplay demos, let's pause for a moment to recognize my new sponsor. That's right, lynda.com. I could tell you guys that lynda.com is an online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills, and that you can get a 10-day free trial by visiting lynda.com/Paul, but you probably know all that, except for the lynda.com/Paul link. That one's new. Why? Because you've probably already seen a video on Linus Tech Tips or Awesome Sauce Network or any of the other channels on YouTube that lynda.com supports, explaining what they are and what they do. So whereas I will be using lynda.com to sharpen my skills over the next few weeks in areas like video editing, business, and photography, for now you can say thank you to lynda.com for supporting YouTube creators like me by clicking the link in this video's description or visiting lynda.com/Paul, that's lynda.com/Paul. So on to some benchmarks. I'm going to do this part pretty much live, and I also wanted to say a quick thank you to my hardware sponsors for the benchmarking system that I'll be using today: Intel for the 5930K CPU, EVGA for the X99 classified motherboard, and G.Skill for the Ripjaws 4 16GB DDR4 memory kit. I'll be taking a look at overall performance as well as comparing the experience on a 2GB GTX 960 versus the MSI GTX 960 Gaming 4GB edition. I chose GTA 5 because it's the new hotness, of course, but also because the wide open world environment is a natural VRAM hog. Increasing settings like draw distance and traffic density will require the game engine to load more textures into the memory buffer, and if it goes beyond 2GB, we should see the standard 960's performance tank. But I wanted to take a look at some results here. So first off, and this is the MSI card, here's some GPU-Z results. And I do want to point out that the GPU core clock actually gets up to 1404 right out of the box. I haven't done any overclocking with this. And then these are my maximum results after I've gone through all 3 passes. So you'll note in the memory used column right there, goodness, 3.4 gigs of memory being used, and this is just at 1080. And GPU temperature only got up to 63. So that was one thing, actually it was having a hard time getting these fans to spin up at first because the GPU wouldn't get warm enough, but that's nice. It's definitely a very, very effective cooler with the Twin Frozer 5 right there. I wanted to do some live testing with GTA 5 online, so that's what I'm doing right now. This is Fraps up in the corner to show the frame rate, and I'm just gonna play the game. It's the most fun I've had all day. Just mowing down some pedestrians. Frame rate's still holding pretty well. 84. Here comes the police officer. Okay, I'm gonna change things up midway through and go to settings and graphics, and we're gonna turn up to by 2 MSIA. And I died. Alright, so yeah, MSIA, man, it's kind of a nasty hit. It goes from like 70 to 80 down to 60, which is not all that great. I'd much rather be at 70 to 80. With everything set to maximum in the regular graphics menu, but I didn't turn on any of the fancy stuff in the other graphics menu. What I found out was first that you can die very easily online. People will kill you. The other thing is that I found out was basically that at 0x MSAA I was golden. I was pretty much 70 to 80 FPS the whole time. However, when I put on the by 2 MSAA, my frame rate dipped down to 50 to 60-ish, which is not as good. So my conclusion here is that the 960 with 4 gigs, particularly this MSI version, which is very dark right now, is great for Grand Theft Auto 5 if you're on a bit of a budget. However, I would recommend keeping that MSAA setting turned to 0x or messing with some other stuff if you want to keep well above 60 FPS. So now that you've looked at some numbers and some gameplay, is the GTX 960 4GB a good card for GTA 5? Well, I would say yes. GTA 5 is actually a great port, which it damn well better be after Rockstar made us wait for so long, and even budget cards can perform pretty well as long as you're willing to reduce a few settings here and there. You might not be able to turn all the eye candy all the way up with the GTX 960, but the added memory means you won't hit a wall at 2 gigs of usage, and in my opinion, draw distance was one of the more important things that I always like to max out in a game like GTA 5. MSI's GTX 960 Gaming 4GB edition is a great take on this card too, and I really like that MSI managed to maintain the premium feel of their flagship cards in this much more budget-friendly version. But let me know if you agree with me in the comments though. You're also welcome to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you are interested in supporting me further, you can check out my store where you can buy t-shirts, not KB Mod t-shirts, but t-shirts with my logo on them, and you can also use my Amazon link before you buy stuff on Amazon. That helps me out a ton as well. Thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you next time.